So recently I've been watching a whole bunch of Grant Cardone videos and also reading his books to get a sense of what makes him so successful, or what can you learn from Grant Cardone. And what's interesting about some of his ideas are they're almost very generic, but actually I do believe that they work. Like, for one thing, he's a big fan of actually having extremely high financial goals. It is important to have extremely high financial goals, because how else are you actually going to achieve these things unless you actually have the high goal to begin with? So many people, they have almost mediocre goals. They don't even really have any kind of ambition. But one thing I noticed about one of his videos that was fascinating was most businesses are not oriented towards closing the deal early. So in one video, Grant Cardone actually calls a business and says, hey, I want to buy 200 industrial grade windows. How much is that going to cost? And then the customer service person basically said, oh, I can't help you. You need to talk to a salesperson. And they couldn't actually provide the price of the item. So many businesses are oriented the wrong way. It's almost as though you're actually harming yourself by not being oriented towards the end goal, which is making the sale, making the close. It's kind of fascinating how many people get this wrong, that you need to actually train all of your people to know how to make the sale, tell people what the price is, and how we can actually sign the agreement and let's get it done. It's kind of weird how many people actually beat around the bush and never get around to it. I mean, I think there are even real estate agents and even car salespeople who actually don't get straight to the end, try to get that agreement. They're talking too much about features and items that they think the customer wants to hear about, but sometimes they want to get the deal done and you're not ready for the deal, and sadly you're losing money as a result. Another thing that Grant Cardone says that people make a mistake with is sometimes they're focusing too much on the pennies. They're focused on saving a little money here and there. Oh, I won't get my coffee, or they're afraid of the advertising it costs to advertise their services, and they're focusing on that instead of the fact that they really need to be raising revenue. They're just not thinking enough about the fact that sometimes you really need to take these steps in order to make money, and people are so afraid to take risks. Another problem that makes people unsuccessful, according to Grant Cardone, is they spend too much time around people who are pessimistic, or they show a lot of doubts, say, oh, you made enough money, or oh, why can't you just take it easy? You don't need to work so hard. So you get a lot of people who kind of have a lot of doubts, and they think that they're actually doing you a favor by trying to lower your goals, make it so you're not as ambitious as you otherwise would be. But this is a mistake. You really need to actually spend time with people who are more successful than you, rather than the people who are less successful and are kind of bringing you down as a result. So one interesting idea that Grant Cardone has is that you should associate with people who are more successful and have a lot more money than you. He even says you should feel free to splurge on hotels, because this allows you to actually meet more successful people. I don't know if that actually works, to be honest, because I've stayed at the Wynn, stayed at Ritz-Carlton. That doesn't necessarily allow you, by virtue of staying there, to actually meet more successful people. It's a nice idea. Maybe if I was a lot more social and meet up with random people, maybe it would work. What do you think, Danny? Is that a good idea, to actually spend more, to go to luxury hotels just to meet more successful people?
I think that's not quite the way to do it. I mean, it might work in certain situations, but most of the time would not be worth it.
It's an interesting idea, I guess. If you're at the hotel and you just start randomly talking to people like, oh, I have some service or business that I think would work for you. Now, you might get kicked out of the hotel for annoying other guests, but maybe you could just handle business cards. Maybe you just strike up a good conversation. It's a interesting idea. I like the idea. I just don't know if it actually works in practice unless you are super charismatic and are just willing to talk to random people. Now, he said that if you're successful, you shouldn't be staying at hotels where they have like a free breakfast. Now, those breakfasts are usually terrible, but he's basically saying, look, those people don't have a lot of money, and it might not be such a great idea to stay there, because you're cutting yourself short. You're just not going to have great opportunities that way. Another interesting idea that Grant Cardone brought up in his video is, if you're selling something, it's good probably not to pigeonhole who is your potential customer. There's so many people, they think that they know the customer just by looking at them. Like I go to some real estate open houses, and their agent doesn't even talk to me, doesn't bother just asking who I am and or what I'm doing there or what I'm thinking about. They just assume they could just sit there and the house sells itself. And it's really incredible how lazy so many people are. They're not trying to make the close. You have to really think of this as a numbers game. Talk to every single person and make a personal connection. And maybe you won't sell that property to that person, but maybe they remember you and say, oh, that person really took some time to get to know me. And maybe they start off renting an apartment or home. Maybe they're going to buy next time. But some people, they just want to pigeonhole people and say, oh, that person's not a buyer, so I'm not going to even bother talking to them. And that's a mistake. You probably are losing out on a potential closing of a major business deal later on. A lot of people actually make the mistake of keeping loser friends around. Like they don't help them, they don't encourage them, they actually kind of bring them down. Like friends, you kind of become the person you associate with. Like some friends, all they want to do is drink beer, goof off, do a lot of nothing, and it's very tempting because a lot of people say I gotta stick with my friends and stuff like that, and as a result they actually tend to become that person. They become less successful because they're kind of associating with friends like that, and they're allowing themselves to be degraded as a result. So it is important to actually meet new people who are more successful than you. That's really the only way here you're gonna get constant encouragement to be even more successful as a result. Another idea that Grant Cardone brings up is that so many people, they quit, but the truth is all the successful people, they are of course tempted to quit because things are hard and there's always going to be difficult situations and challenges. Like for instance, look at my own YouTube channel. It's taken a long time to get people to watch my videos, and if I were like anybody else, I would have said, never mind, it's just not worth the bother. The truth is, anything that's going to result in huge gains and wins, you're going to have a lot of setbacks and a lot of unsuccessful moments before you start seeing things turning around. So many people just see that there's not instant gratification, instant success, and they just give up as a result. And that's one reason why most people are not super successful either. Another reason why Grant Cardone says some people are not successful at selling is because the salespeople are not actually real strong believers in the products themselves. How can you actually sell something when you don't believe in it yourself? So I think some places like car dealers, they have to probably spend more time trying to show the employee that this really is an awesome car. Because if the salesperson really doesn't think it's awesome, it's going to become pretty noticeable. In a similar fashion, maybe real estate agents, when they're looking at homes, they need to actually be passionately in love with the property or actually believe in it somehow, because if they're not really that enthused, it's going to be noticeable. It's going to be noticeable that they're not really passionate, they don't really believe in it themselves. And if you don't believe something yourself, you're not going to have an easy time selling it to other people. So I'll conclude, I've been watching a lot of his Grant Cardone's videos, his books, and I have to say, I don't agree with every single point, but he does actually make a good point that you at least need to have really high ambitious targets. Maybe you won't meet them, but if you don't actually have these really high goals, you're not going to get there at all. If you think about it, he's able to charge extremely high amounts because he gives the air of confidence. This is something you probably should learn from your own sake. You can indeed charge extremely high prices as well. You just have to show great confidence that you know what you're talking about, and figure out how to market it. It's amazing what you can do in this world. Anyway, click the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Live from City of Orange. Well, not so live, but you know what I mean.